A lot of ground types receive buffs in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This video will be discussing those moveset buffs, but no new Pokemon will be spoiled. Garchomp now has access to spikes. Groudon can now burn opponents with Will-O-Wisp. Like the other genies, they finally gave Landorus Nasty Plot. Quagsire can now set up spikes, Toxic Spikes, and Stealth Rock. Crocodile can now learn Gunk Shot to hit Fairy types super effectively. And Gastrodon can also set up Stealth Rock and Spike. Some of these Pokemon got even more than what I mentioned. So let's take a closer look at these Pokemon that received these buffs in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The beloved Garchomp has received quite a few buffs. I mentioned spikes in the intro. I think this is really big considering Garchomp has a lot of free turns. There was obviously previously Tank Garchomp in the past. Tank Garchomp runs spikes. Oh, now it could. But it runs Stealth Rock, Dragon Tail, Toxic, and Earthquake. Sometimes it has Protect over Dragon Tail. The idea was that Garchomp is so tanky that it's able to come in on Pokemon like Heatran and set up Stealth Rock, but also wall them and also annoy the Pokemon. Now granted, Garchomp no longer gets Toxic in this generation. It also doesn't get Scale Shot either for its Swords Dance offensive sets. But you can easily run Spike Swords Dance. You can run as a Focus Sash lead. We could easily see support Garchomp again with Leftovers or Rocky Helmet with Spikes, Earthquake, Dragon Tail because it lost Roar, and whatever last move you want. And it just opens up so much for Garchomp offensive and defensive play. For those that might have played Generation 7 and know about Ash Greninja, basically Battle Bond Greninja would set up spikes and then later try to sweep you with Dark Pulse and Hydro Pump because your counters would be worn down by spikes. Kind of similar to what a Spike Swords Dance Garchomp could run if it really wanted to, because people already run Spikes Stealth Rock Garchomp. Now, the other buff that Garchomp ended up getting was Liquidation. This is a pretty big difference because previously Aqua Tail was all Garchomp had. Now Aqua Tail is stronger than Liquidation, but we know that 90% is one of the biggest lies in Pokemon, right? How many times have you missed a 90? I think missing 90% accurate moves is one of the most upsetting things because it's so close to being 100%. But Liquidation is great because not only does it have 100% accuracy, but you also have a chance to be stronger than Aqua Tail because you can get defense drops. I really like this as a means of Garchomp dealing with Hippowdon and Landorus, but still giving you that neutral coverage versus Pokemon like Corviknight. And the last move that Garchomp did end up getting was Thunder Fang. Now, this isn't really too important considering you're not really going for Thunder Fang versus most. For example, versus like a Tapu Fini, you would go for an Earthquake just because it's strong as hell anyway and can't miss. And then Garchomp could previously run, I don't know why I couldn't put Thunder Fang there for whatever reason, but Garchomp could previously run Stone Edge if it really wanted to hit Pokemon like Zapdos and Pelipper in one. Obviously, Zapdos doesn't take super effective damage with Thunder Fang, but Pelipper takes 4 times effective damage. But maybe on a Choice Band set, you could run Thunder Fang if Rain becomes super common, which I could really see in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, considering we have some crazy Swift Swim Pokemon like Basket Legion coming out with Pokemon Home. Now, Landorus Therian got some wild buffs. I already talked about Nasty Plot. Now this is good because you got to remember it's not just this Landorus, guys. It's this Landorus. This Landorus also gets Nasty Plot. Now previously in singles, this Landorus has always been banned, right? It starts off in the beginning and it ends up getting banned because it has Earth Power, it has Sludge Wave, it runs Psychic, and then your last move is whatever it wants, right? It could run U-Turn, it could run Rock Slide or anything like that. Previously, it was too much of an offensive threat like this. It was a wall breaker like this. They have taken it to the next level, and now you can run Nasty Plot. Also, Focus Blast is an option on it as well if you didn't want to over that. But now you can Nasty Plot up. This is too much of a buff. This is too much of a buff for Landorus. It makes sense because the other Therian Mons, the other Genies all got it, right? But damn, is this a good buff for Landorus. And not just this Landorus, right? It's amazing for this Landorus. Also, I want to mention one more thing that it got. Taunt. And I think Taunt is also sick on both Landorus forms. You can be a lead Stealth Rock Taunt set with Earth Power. If it still has Explosion. Actually, no, it doesn't get Explosion in Scarlet and Violet anymore. But you can be an anti-lead set. This is cool like in Ubers, where Legendaries are allowed, where you could just prevent your opponent from defogging or getting rid of your hazards. Taunt's just good to stop. Like if I hit Blissey with Earth Power upon switching, I do about 30%, 25-30%. I taunt it in the next turn. It cannot heal up. And I am effectively beating it 1v1 without having to be a mixed set with some sort of fighting coverage in order to deal with it. So really big for Landorus for sure. And not to mention, not just this Landorus, right? Now that Landorus is very annoying, but this is the Landorus that if you play singles, if you play doubles, if you play anything, this is the Landorus you see. Like all the time. Why? Because this Landorus is not only an offensive demon, but a defensive behemoth with Intimidate. They have nerfed quote unquote Intimidate every single time by buffing other abilities to be able to deal with it, and it still isn't enough for this Pokemon. And this Pokemon also obviously has access to Nasty Plot and Taunt. You might be thinking, well, why the hell would you run Nasty Plot on this Landorus? I mean, why not? It has 105 base special attack. It's not like this stops it from doing anything, right? It has Earth Power as an option. It already had Calm Mind as an option too, but there's no point in using Calm Mind on this mon because it takes too long to boost to actually be doing damage. But Nasty Plot is +2 versus the +1 of Calm Mind. And it has good coverage, right? It has the exact same coverage as the other guy. So it has everything that the other Landorus has. It has like potentially Sludge Wave and Sludge Bomb for fairy types like Tapu Fini and things like that, Clefable. So this is a potential gigantic threat. And I want to also mention how crazy Taunt is on Landorus, right? So this is the previous defensive Landorus sets. Earthquake, you run Stealth Rock, you run U-Turn, and you run Toxic. Sometimes you have Knockoff if you have a Stealth Rocker on your team. Now granted, Landorus no longer gets Knockoff Toxic. It doesn't get Defog anymore. But this particular set of Landorus could never stop something like Corviknight from defogging on it. It can never stop a Pokemon like Skarmory or Corviknight from getting rid of the Stealth Rock that it just put up. Now that it has access to Taunt, not only does it stop Pokemon from defogging, but also Ferrothorn from Leech Seeding. And you got to remember that Landorus has base 145 attack. Its Earthquakes are strong, even without investment. You're doing about 30% to Ferrothorn. And the way that Ferrothorn recovered was literally using Leech Seed and Protect. But if you're going to Earthquake and then you can Taunt to stop the setup, stop the Leech Seed, stop all that. These are big buffs for both Landorus forms. And not to mention, Landorus also gets Sandsear Storm, which is a move from Pokemon Legends Arceus. And this can also work on, I guess they don't have it here, but this can also work on this as well, on Nasty Plot sets too. Granted, Earth Power is stronger, but Sandsear Storm has a 20% chance to burn the opponent. So it's kind of like how we had Scorching Sands, but Scorching Sands was, and the Sandsear Storm is 80 power. Right, 100% accuracy, whereas Scorching Sand was 70 power. So, and not every ground type got it, right? Landorus didn't obviously get it. So the fact that Landorus can run that with Taunt can potentially burn Pokemon like Ferrothorn coming in, taunt them to stop them from setting up hazards, from going for Leech Seed. One of the biggest buffs we have so far. Speaking of big buffs, big Groudon. Now, Groudon has access to spikes. I don't know why they're giving a lot of these ground type spikes, but this is amazing, right? Because Groudon already had an incredible move pool. Groudon already has an incredible move pool, so much coverage, so many good moves. It can set up Stealth Rock, but now Spikes is an option. This is cool because a lot of Ubers can fit Stealth Rock on their set too. Like you could run Spikes Groudon plus like Stealth Rock Necrozma Dust Main or anything like that. That's kind of like what I'm thinking of. But Spikes is amazing. You can stack 3 layers of them, do a lot of damage. I mentioned Will-O-Wisp as well. This is big too. It allows you to really cripple, without having to go for like Lava Plume or anything like that, but it really allows you to cripple physical attackers coming in, or even setting up on you. For example, Rayquaza tries to set up on your Groudon, you go for Will-O-Wisp, you've burnt them. I love this. I think Groudon deserved this, honestly, especially when it, Primal reverted and became Primal Groudon and was part Fire type. I'm happy they got this. Other options that Groudon has that I think are pretty cool now is Body Press. Whoops. So Groudon gets Body Press now as well. And Body Press is an alright move. It's an alright move. It doesn't have Iron Defense as far as I can see. I don't see Iron Defense in its thing, so I'm not entirely sure if it can actually raise defense with a particular move. But coming off of a 140 base defense stat and you run Fizz Def, it's not a bad move. I don't know how much it'll take place in Ubers, but also it got Rock Blast and Crunch. I think Rock Blast might have some sort of mention on like defensive sets, whereas you don't want to miss Stone Edge. And Rock Slide kind of sucks, so you go for like Rock Slide doesn't suck, but like, especially if you're a VGC player, you're like, what are you talking about, bro? Rock Slide's broken. I agree. But like, you want something like Rock Blast that is accurate, but also has, not 100% accurate, but is accurate enough and also has chances to get multiple hits to be even stronger than those attacks. So I think that's a pretty cool option for it as well. Crocodile got Gunk Shot. I'm excited about Crocodile getting Gunk Shot. I think that this is a really good option on choice sets. Gunk Shot, Earthquake, you'd run Close Combat as well. So it already has some good spammable moves. Now it has lost Knockoff and High Horsepower. High Horsepower doesn't matter as much. The reason you ran High Horsepower is if you ran it with Rillaboom, Earthquake is weakened, so High Horsepower gives you a ground stab that isn't weakened. But losing Knockoff, one of the best moves in the game, kind of sucks for it. However, it does have access to Darkest Lariat, which is still 85 base power, 100% accurate, so it's nice. On average, it is stronger than knockoff just because once you knock off an opponent's item, knockoff is weaker. So Darkest Lair, it's a good move in that regard. And also it ignores boost, so you're fighting something like a Cosmic Power Pokemon, this will help you deal with that. Or Iron Defense Pokemon, this will help you deal with that. I like Gunk Shot though, because being able to hit fairies like Clefable and Tapu Fini, not to say that they're in the game or not, but just as, you know, examples, being able to do that. I think also in Battle Stadium, 3v3, this could be pretty cool because it allows you to use it as a Stealth Rock lead, but you can also trade versus fairies if you use Focus Sash. Quagsire is crazy, right? So usually Quagsire is seen as the unaware wall, where you can recover Toxic, and it's also one of the Pokemon that learns Toxic via level up, so it doesn't lose Toxic. And then Scald. Scald is no longer in the game for this Pokemon, only Volcanion gets Scald. So you can't Scald, but you run like Earthquake. And then sometimes you run Protect here, sometimes you run Curse. I've seen people run Stockpile. I've seen people run, Yawn as well, if I'm not mistaken. Surf would obviously be an option too because you don't have Scald anymore. And Ice Beam is also an option as well for like Dragons. So like this is like a standard set almost, right? You have Unaware, so you don't care about setup. And you have Ice Beam to hit the Dragons. You have Earthquake to hit everything that, you know, ground type should be hitting. And then Toxic and Recover. Granted, Recover's nerfed. It's only APP now. But they said, you know what? Swampert can learn Stealth Rock, and Seismitoad can learn Stealth Rock. Well, Quagsire, you might as well get Stealth Rock spikes and Toxic spikes. Okay, Stealth Rock, I'm glad. I think all water grounds should get Stealth Rock. They wanted to differentiate them, but I feel like they all should have gotten Stealth Rock. Spikes, cool. They're giving a lot of ground type spikes. Why not? Then they get this damn thing, like Demon. They give it Toxic spikes. It's crazy. You could actually use, if you wanted to, Unaware and just set up hazards, right? You could easily put whatever hazard. Now, I wouldn't put Stealth Rock on Quagsire unless your team really needs it. But something like Recover, Toxic, right? You get your Earthquake here. Easily do something like this. This could very easily be a good set. It has Unaware to be defensive. It has Recover for reliable recovery for 8 turns. It also has Water Absorb as an option too. And then you can layer Spike with it and then switch out after. Obviously, this can also work with Toxic Spike. And then you can interchange whatever you want to. If you're putting Toxic Spikes and you don't think it's necessary to run Toxic Spikes with Toxic, you can run like Ice Beam or Surf as your options as well. I just think they just opened up the way to play Quagsire a lot. When I see Quagsire, I automatically think, okay, physical defensive wall, and my setup Pokemon are not going to like it unless I have Mold Breaker or something to ignore Unaware. No. Now I have to think, okay, this thing can set up Stealth Rock. If it sets up Stealth Rock, it's fine. It's not the worst. It's one of the best moves in the game, right? But like on Quagsire, it just means, okay, it doesn't have a good slot there, right? But Spikes, having 3 layers of Spike or 2 layers of Toxic Spike, and I have to worry about my setup mons as well, just taking a damage. Crazy, huge buff. I do want to know what you guys think about these buffs, by the way. And also, if you are enjoying this video, if you like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and you're hyped about it, and you know, I feel like subscribe to my channel. I got a lot of content coming out. I'm gonna be guides and all that stuff, so make sure you sub. And if you guys want to pick up Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, I do have a Best Buy affiliate link. You can support me as well. But yeah, if you like the content, make sure you subscribe. So Mudsdale got a slight little buff. They give it Stone Edge now. Previously, it only had a Rock Slide. Now, Mudsdale has base 125 attack, and people sleep on Choice Band Mudsdale. But like Earthquake, Heavy Slam is really good on this Pokemon as well. And it had Close Combat. These are all great. These are all good moves, right? Heavy Slam is usually a strong move on this Pokemon because it weighs a lot. And then Earthquake and Close Combat are just good moves in general, right? This is a really good move. But then you have to couple this with weak 75 base power Rock Slide, right? You can't have 120, sometimes 120, 100, and then Rock Slide. So Stone Edge is nice on more offensive variants of it as well. Just a little buff to its additional power. It can also work better on support as well because like defensive Rock Slide variants, and you couldn't even knock out Talonflame after Will-O-Wisp, whereas Stone Edge will be doing so much more. But again, just a small little buff that Mudsdale gets. They also decided to give Gastrodon both Stealth Rock and Spike. Again, like I said before, I think it's fine that all the water grounds have Stealth Rock. Swampert already had it. Seismitoad already had it. Quagsire and Gastrodon kind of differentiated themselves from those two just because they had reliable recovery. But I think it's fine for Gastrodon. I think it's fine on Gastrodon. I think the big one, once again, is the Spikes. Because very similar to Quagsire, you can run Spikes, Earthquake, Recover, and then figure out your last move from there. Now, no longer is Scald available on Gastrodon. It does have another move. I'm not going to talk about it, though, because it's a new move. And I didn't mention in the beginning that I would talk about new moves. But it does have another option as a water move. But you can use Surf, obviously, too. This is also interesting, like doubles OU. Obviously, you can run like Earth Power as well with special sets as well. But it just gives Gastrodon so much more viability than simply, okay, I'm going to come in on the Electric type. I'm going to absorb the Water move. I'll recover. I'll do my normal Scald Burn. Can't do it anymore, but I'll do my normal Scald Burn, Toxic, potentially if it even gets Toxic anymore. And then go from there. But no, now you have to, again, worry about spikes. And I think, I feel like, and I cannot stress enough, like how good hazards are. They are very, very good. There's a lot of hazard pressure. So I'm happy that they gave it this ability to do a little more. Same thing with Whiscash. I mentioned the other water grounds, and I kind of disrespected Whiscash, who was obviously next. But I think Swampert, Toad, Quagsire, and Gastrodon are definitely more iconic than Whiscash. If you are a Whiscash fan, though, let me know. I would love to shake your hand, because I'm sure there's only one of you. But jokes aside, Whiscash ain't very good. Its peak was Gen 5, where it could use Dragon Dance plus Hydration in the rain. So it would be Dragon Dance, Earthquake, Waterfall, Rest, and with Rain being infinite in Generation 5, this Pokemon could rest up to full and basically wake up because Hydration heals status under rain. That was basically its peak, and not to say much. I mean, it did get Z moves in Generation 7, but not a lot has come out of Whiscash. You cannot really use this Pokemon because as you can look at its stats, it doesn't really have the best stats. However, there is one Pokemon to compare it to. Like, look at its stats compared to Gastrodon, right? Its defense is 73. Gastrodon's defense is 68. So while Whiscash isn't like a physically defensive mon, the reason this mon doesn't work like Gastrodon, or even if we look at Quagsire again real quick, Quagsire is 95, 85. So it's actually super close to that as well, just based on it. Like the 110 is way thicker than the 95. The reason it never worked a particular way is because it didn't have reliable recovery. And it still doesn't technically have reliable recovery. However, you could simply run something like, I'm trying to think like whatever nature, we'll do this for now. But now it has more viability, right? You can run Spikes, you can run it as your bulky water with Earth Power or Earthquake, whatever, your Surf. And this could be a very nice lower tier Spiker. You can run Oblivious as well, that way it can't be taunted. Or Intimidated if you want to run Earthquake as well, with like Waterfall too. But I prefer special attacks on these type of Pokemon just because if it gets burnt by Will-O-Wisp, I don't really have to worry too much. But you can definitely do something like this. You don't have to do Rest in particular. Like you can do, if it doesn't have Toxic. I don't think it has Toxic, but if it still does learn Toxic, because again, a lot of Pokemon don't have Toxic anymore. That's definitely something you could do. The other option is, of course, like Icy Wind or Ice Beam. And just be a lower tier Spiker that can deal with some electric types and everything like that. So I think it just, while Whiscash isn't the greatest Pokemon, it can actually make use of a Fizz Def or a special defensive set and use the spikes it has, right? I'm not here to give you viable movesets. I'm just talking about what I think about when I'm looking at this Pokemon, what it could potentially do. What are your thoughts on that? Lastly, they buffed Sandaconda. Now, barely a buff. I just wanted to mention it just because it did get a new move. But it's not really a buff. As you can see, it has Fire Fang, and now it has Thunder Fang. That's basically it. I don't think it makes too much of a difference for Sandaconda. For the most part, Rock plus Ground is what you're running. Like, if you're ever using Sandaconda, you're usually running Stone Edge or Earthquake as your offensive options, Coil. Sometimes you have Stealth Rock. Obviously, Glare as well with Sand Spit was something that was used too. Excuse me. Glare with Sand Spit was something that was used as well in Battle Stadium Singles to get up sand for Excadrill. But now Thunder Fang is one of its options. Again, I don't think it opens up too much for it unless you want to Oko a Pelipper, something like that. But that's all I have for you guys. So what do you guys think about the ground type buffs? Some of these are crazy, right? Garchomp getting spikes, Gastrodon and Quagsire getting it, Groudon finally having spikes, and Will-O-Wisp is pretty crazy. And then the big one, obviously, Landorus getting Taunt and Nasty Plot is insane. So let me know your thoughts. Again, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. I have plenty of Pokemon stuff coming out for Scarlet and Violet. I upload every single day. And I got plenty of Pokemon stuff coming out for Scarlet and Violet, like guides and things. And again, if you want to pick up the games, you want to support me, I do have Best Buy affiliate links. Buying anything using those links, like you go there for Pokemon, but you leave with a computer or something, you support me. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.